For generations, mining operations across BC have provided high-paying jobs and economic activity in every region of the province. According to the Mining Association of BC, mining continues to be vital to the provincial economy and the standard of living of people here in the province. BC's minerals and metals are key ingredients in clean energy technologies, and they are helping the world transition to a cleaner, low-carbon economy. The association goes on to point out that BC's mines and smelters support more than 35,000 workers across the province, from Campbell River to Cranbrook and from Victoria to Vanderhoof. Adam Pankratz, an adjunct professor of strategy and business economics at UBC Sauder School of Business, says BC isn't home to many world company headquarters, except when it comes to mining. Pankratz says the province, and Vancouver in particular, are centers of excellence in every aspect of mining. And the Mining Association confirmed this in a recent report, stating most of the major players operating in the province are either BC or Canadian-based companies. And over time, this has led to the Lower Mainland becoming a global mining center with one of the largest concentrations of industry-related professionals in the world. The sector embraces innovation and high tech to ensure operations waste less, conserve more, optimize the responsible extraction of resources, and minimize the environmental footprint. Mining in BC is largely a homegrown sector. From engineering to geology, finance, legal, accounting, chemistry, environmental services, high technology, and so much more, BC's mining expertise and services are in demand internationally. This sector has built a global reputation as responsible operators, from exploration, planning and permitting through to development, production, and reclamation. The sector, especially here in BC, meets the world's highest regulatory standards, standards that safeguard the environment and the health and safety of workers. And while there's more to be done, BC's mining sector has taken a leadership role in advancing economic reconciliation with BC's Indigenous nations through numerous agreements and partnerships that reflect the principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Mining has become a significant partner with Indigenous businesses in BC and a large employer of Indigenous people. I invited Adam Pankratz of the Sauder School of Business to join me for a conversation that matters about mining in BC. Adam Pankratz, welcome.
Nice to be here, Stuart.
Adam, we're talking about mining today, mining in British Columbia in particular, because whether or not the average British Columbian knows it, we have a remarkable history of mining. How would you characterize, our pedigree in mining from not just a Canadian or Western Canadian perspective, but globally?
Well, we're a world-class mining jurisdiction. I mean, we have in Vancouver over 1,000 mining companies. We're really, Vancouver is not a headquarters for a lot of things in the world, but it is a headquarters and a center worldwide for mining. We have top quality talent, expertise, top quality sites for mining, which we can develop. This is something that British Columbia really has worldwide a competitive advantage in, and something we should be really proud of.
How did we become experts in mining? What gave us this advantage?
Well, the geology of British Columbia is certainly important, right? We have great resources in coal, in copper, in gold, molybdenum. We're Canada's only producer of molybdenum, for example. But also being sort of a frontier type province, western side of North America, historically last area to get developed. We were part of the gold rush, right, up the Fraser Canyon. That started the whole thing historically. And it's maintained that. It's always been something that's been really important to our economy, and that governments have broadly supported because they recognize what an important part of the economy it is for British Columbia.
So the thing that I'm trying to figure out as you're saying this, I'm going, okay, well, I know that there was mining in California and Nevada and Mexico. Why didn't they become the centers of excellence that you say we have become in mining?
Well, that's a good question. A big part of it has been our government support and promotion of it, right? There's been a lot of regulatory support, just Canada being a resource-based economy and British Columbia and Vancouver being a resource town, that has made mining historically be something that developed the province. So you think about a mine like the Sullivan Mine up in Kimberley, which ran for 92 years, basically through the entire 20th century. That Sullivan Mine and Kamenko, which was running it, they developed basically out the entire Kootenay region with trains and power plants and further development in other towns, and that really encouraged the development of the province as a whole, because we were sparsely populated and had the ability to develop these towns through mining.
What was it about, I guess, the environment here that started to attract world-class geological talent? Because without those people who know how to identify whether or not there's a potential resource that can be, capitalized on, everybody can say, well, yeah, I think there's gold in them, there are hills, but finding it and developing it requires that particular talent. Do we have like an education system and an environment that attracts top quality geological talent?
Well, the University of British Columbia is recognized as and has a very well-developed geology program, and that certainly has been incredibly important in terms of giving us the talent and the promotion of that to attract it at an undergrad level, but also at a very sophisticated research level. So there's lots of programs at the University of British Columbia that promote and support that, and then of course along with that, the amount of money that is in Vancouver and the economic incentive to develop further mining projects in British Columbia has historically promoted that.
So I guess when we see somebody like Ross Beatty, who heads up Pan American Silver, he's a graduate of that program at UBC, but he's also a strong supporter of programs at UBC to further that education. Have we been seeing like a fair bit of that kind of reinvestment in the future from people who have been successful here?
Well, we have seen it from guys like Ross Beatty. Like Ross is still a big supporter, obviously, of mining and so on. What we have seen is perhaps the governments being a little bit more shy in their vocal promotion of mining. They seem to have not wanted to talk about that as much for various reasons, but certainly the people who historically were involved in the Vancouver mining scene, who were successful and started world-class companies, a guy like Ross Beatty, for example, they absolutely promote it and they want to keep it going because they recognize that we are a world-class jurisdiction to mine in.
Well, when you take a look at Teck, too, Teck moved here from Ontario back in the 1970s, and we're talking about an extraordinary company that was led by a mining pioneer, Norm Keevil, and he and his, team said, no, we want to go to British Columbia. Well, that's a big endorsement for BC as a mining jurisdiction as well.
Well, it's huge. And I think, it's not very often that you see companies in Canada moving from Toronto to Vancouver. Again, Vancouver, you think like, what are we a center of? What headquarters do we have here? Not that many. Except mining. We got a lot of mining, over 1,000 mining companies headquartered in Vancouver, and that's what attracts it, right? That centrality, the ability to access various talent, which, by the way, not only is talent in British Columbia, but that these companies don't just mine. Like Teck doesn't just mine in BC. Teck mines all over the world.
That's right.
Everywhere.
As does Pan American Silver
As does Pan
and
American
other companies but their headquarters are here because, as you say, we are the center of excellence around mining, and yet, and you just alluded to it a moment ago, mining has an incredibly low profile. Why? Why is it that we seem to look around and go, yeah, there's nothing going on here, when in fact there's so much that's happening?
Well, I think so. I think there's a couple of reasons, and I think I come to this with an interesting perspective because I don't come from a mining background. Okay,
No.
My parents were both high school teachers. I grew up in Burnaby. I did not come from a background where I knew where mines were or that mining was ever really much of a topic of conversation. So I'm consistently surprised, even now being involved in the industry, how much mining there is. But I think one reason is most mines, people don't even know where they are. You don't see them. They're off up some valley. And unless you see maybe Copper Mountain off the number 3 highway in Princeton, or you see the big truck in Sparwood, you don't see these mines, right? They're hidden in a valley somewhere, and you just don't physically see them. They're not near Vancouver a lot of the time, or they're hidden if they are. And I think more recently, so this is reason number one, and I think more recently, mining, I don't want to say it's become a dirty word, but it has become a word that governments maybe don't want to go near because it carries with it potentially worries about the environment. And the government is really trying to push environmentally sustainable initiatives, and mining doesn't, in the current government's rhetoric, doesn't fit in that right now. Wrongly, in my opinion, but that's where we are.
Right. I think that's rather odd because you can't have any sustainability without mining, because in life it's either growing or it's mined. And so if you want to have, well, let's say that TV behind you, there are elements in it that you cannot make work without having the resources of the earth that have been mined and then manufactured in a way that they will make that television set work.
Well, absolutely, and the same applies to any type of, electric vehicle, right? We're going to have more electric vehicles on the road. Well, we're going to need more batteries. We're going to need lithium. We're going to need copper. We're going to need steel, molybdenum, right? These are all going to be wind turbines. All of that material comes out of the ground from mining. Like, mining has a very, very large role to play in the green economy going forward, actually.
So we're good at being stewards of the land here in British Columbia, especially over the last 25, 30 years. We've really tightened up our environmental requirements, and yet people still sort of go, ugh, mining, like it's a dirty word. How do we get beyond that?
Well, I think you're starting to see people, the tide potentially turn a little bit. You've got really good proponents of natural resource development like Ellis Ross, who has been very vocal in his support for example, LNG. Now that's not mining, but natural resource development, because he, for example, recognizes the importance of mining to the First Nations communities. Mining is the largest employer of First Nations in Canada, and has had a long history of working with First Nations communities. You notice that the Mining Association of British Columbia was one of the very vocal or prominent supporters of the UNDRIP legislation in British Columbia. This relationship has always, is very frequently positive, right? And creates opportunity. And I think people starting to be aware of that, and more prominent people with a voice like Ellis Ross talking about it, is getting the broader population to hopefully realize that mining has a real future here. We're not there yet. We need more positivity around it, but these are positive steps in the right direction.
So what is the economic value of mining and its contribution to the province of British Columbia?
So it's 25% of BC's exports are mining. That's
excuse me?
25%.
25%?
25%, $11.7 billion in exports is mining. We don't know numbers just yet for this year, where mining has actually seen quite a boom because of the gold price and a surge in exploration. But a few years ago, 2016-17, we had 1.5 billion in capital expenditures, $200 million in junior mining expenditures, 350 million in other development and exploration. These are big dollars, like billions and billions of dollars that are put into the British Columbia economy, and that economic contribution, right, is not just for these companies. That's $650 million to government revenues to pay for the services that we all enjoy and want. And this is big time business. And I gave you the dollar numbers. How about the job numbers? 10,000 plus are employed in the mining industry directly.
Direct jobs.
And each one of those direct jobs is supported by 2 indirect jobs. So we got 30,000 plus jobs in the mining industry at minimum, right? Probably more at the moment. But 30,000 jobs in British Columbia, in communities all around the province. This is big time stuff. On the company that I'm involved with, Rockmaster Resources, we have 2 families there, the Denny's and the Mills. The Denny's are 3rd and 4th generation prospectors, and the Mills also 4th or 5th even generation underground miners. They're working again because of mining. They're involved. They've been supported for generations because of mining, and that continues to be true today.
So, not only are home to head offices, it's a significant economic contributor to the provincial government's bank account, provides jobs and opportunity in a lot of remote communities. But also Vancouver is this financial center for the funding of incubator companies that are in mining. How did that happen as well? In conjunction with that, Vancouver, even though we've taken that market and it's now part of the TSX, it was the VSC for the longest time. Still, it's through Vancouver that fundraising happens, because this is the other offshoot of what mining brings into the city. Well, in the province.
Absolutely. You brought up the VSC. We don't have that anymore, but those networks and those connections and where that money and interest is to fund exploration, to fund large projects, that's all still by and large in Vancouver. Obviously, there's a lot in Toronto, that's for sure. But Vancouver, certainly for exploration, is enormous. This is a high risk business. These thousands of mining companies are here. They have the expertise. They know where to go. And again, not only in British Columbia. They have the ability to do this all over the world, but that economic activity is taking place in Vancouver.
So there's a part of me that thinks, okay, well, we went through those somewhat interesting times. That's maybe a euphemism for saying there were a lot of things that maybe shouldn't have happened in the fundraising sector around mining going back to the 80s and 90s. And so we kind of lost the front position in being in the market. This is why the TSX wound up absorbing the VSC, so there was a greater level of accountability. Do you think that period has contributed to this? Oh yeah, mining. It's there, but I don't quite want to admit it because we think that there's still a hangover from that period.
I think that people remember or see the wilder side of mining or mining funding because it is more interesting. And catches more headlines, when the majority of mining and mining funding was never that. Were there bad actors? Yeah, sure. But there are bad actors in finance in New York, in real estate, in Vancouver,
Right.
And those catch headlines. But really, at the end of the day, what mining is about grit, perseverance, and dragging something out of the ground. A lot of people, CEO of Rockmaster, John Mirko, he's been in the business for 45 years, grinding away, a lot of lean years. Now all of a sudden the Revel Ridge project comes along, great opportunity with gold. But it was a lot of grinding and a lot of staying alive, making those connections, working hard, keeping the company alive, keeping that economic activity going, that allowed them, Rockmaster to get to that point. And that applies to all kinds of junior companies, and by the way, even large companies like Teck. They obviously have operational mines and they have cash flow, but they got to deal with the ups and downs of the market and really focus on what makes a mining work, which is operational efficiency and excellence and financial discipline. So, does that wilder side, did it ever contribute? I'm sure in some areas it did, but really that's not what mining's about. Mining's about efficiency, discipline, and grit and resilience.
Okay, so one last topic just before we wrap up, and that is women in mining, because I think there's also this perception that it's such a remote, dirty, tough business that there isn't a place for women. But as Anna Tudela, when she was with Goldcorp, pointed out, no, there's a tremendous range of opportunities for women in mining. Is mining open in all of its expressions to employment for women?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in all different types of jobs, whether that's being a geologist. We have a woman who's a geologist on our team, whether that is running the camp, whether that is driving the machines. All of those can be done by women and actually is encouraged, right? I mean, the bigger diversity you have, we know, in any company, in any organization, the better off you're going to be. So yeah, this is an area that if women want to get involved, if it's not something they've thought about before, absolutely, I would encourage them to do so.
So do you think that if we are better at embracing mining as being one of our key economic sectors, that it can do nothing more than enhance what is already a prosperous sector in the economy?
I think the opportunity is huge if it's done right. Kind of perversely with COVID, more money has been spent in BC because the companies who operate internationally have a lot more difficulty operating internationally, like drill rigs and so on, right? So COVID, in a way, kept that in BC, the more economic activity. But that's going to end. So what happens when that ends? If the government recognizes the opportunity that mining has to support Indigenous communities, to contribute to the economy, to contribute to the green economy going forward, and promotes that and creates a regulatory environment in which there's certainty, then mining has a really bright future in British Columbia.
So you say there's a changing narrative and it's a good one.
I certainly do, yes.